Well, it's always nice when you get to introduce somebody who's a longtime friend also. Timothy Michael Ricke is an award-winning dynamic public speaker, author, and business and speakers coach. He's Entrepreneur of the Year and a Florida Business Person of the Year. He's a pretty amazing guy. We both serve on the board of advisors for 1 Million Cups, which, of course, is the main entrepreneur organization in all of Central Florida. His topics range from marketing, communications, and total systemization of businesses. His style and mode of presentation are controversial, humorous, conversational, not controversial. Well, they're sort of that too. Humorous, engaging, fun, and original. At times, Tim's provides singing. As a classically trained vocalist and musician, he's provided concerts to charities as an Elvis impersonator for the last 23 years. He's really good at it. As a speaker and trainer for Tony Robbins, he has coached hundreds of speakers. 2 of his students have reached Toastmasters World Championships. He's the author of Entrepreneur book series. He's the second of 10 children, raised 7, and the grandfather of 6. A former Army Ranger, he volunteered at the VA, helping vets going through rehab. He's also a retired Rotarian and a former always a Paul Harris Fellow. Please welcome Tim Ricke.
Good afternoon. It's called motivation. Thank you. I look forward to coming here because I was a Rotarian in the Castleberry Club for many years. Some of you remember one of the members, his name is Don Jonas. Remember Don? With his big cigars, and they coach at UCF first football team. And then we also had the retired general from the Air Force who was there when it's SAC. That was in the 60s. I've lost his Bruce Hollingsworth. Quite a guy. I was really surprised when I found out. We're working on this little engine. We had this little train in Castleberry for the kids, and that's how we raised some funds. We're working on the engine one day, Bruce and I said, Bruce, what did you do before you retired? He says, I spent a little time in the military. That was it. I was amazed. He's quite a guy. So what is Toastmasters is the question that's asked a lot. Everybody thinks drinking club. Seems like it would be, but it's not. It'll be 100 years old next year that they've been around. One of the very first, how many of you remember the book called Think and Grow Rich? Napoleon Hill, right? One of the very first Toastmasters that many years ago. They're worldwide nonprofit. Does that sound familiar in here, right? Nonprofit as well. It's got 280,000 members as of 2 weeks ago. I just checked. 164 countries and 14,700 clubs. I'm in the Winter Park Club, which has been kind of held up in the news within them because they visited our club 2 months ago from TI International. They're in Denver now. And they said, what is it with this club that everybody seems to know about you? And I said, well, one thing, can you show me where our Zoom camera is? I don't see it. That's because we don't have one. We stopped doing Zoom 2 years ago. We didn't need it anymore because we put it on there. Nobody's on anyway. They're in the club. We have at least 45 members every Friday morning show up to that meeting. We have 80 members total. So it's a good turnout. It's a lot of fun. And I'm going to explain the steps we go through as we go. Well, I'll do that right now. First, we have a Toastmaster of the Day, MC. He's the one that directs the entire meeting. We have a grammarian who's going to check for oohs and ahs and so's and things like this. Then we have the dinger who is going to hit you if you go that kind of thing. And but believe it or not, within a few weeks of being in Toastmasters, when you're speaking, you will completely drop the ah. You don't think you will, but you do. And some of these presidents we've seen through the years, oh my God, how did they ever get there with and so it kind of drives you, especially when you've been trained as a Toastmaster, because now you're totally aware of it. And we have a timer. Everything is timed in Toastmasters, much like we do here. And that means that each step of the way, everything is timed. So we finish at exactly 9 o'clock. If we go over, it's by seconds. That's how well planned out it is. And that's been worked over for years and years to get to that point. I mentioned I was there. Table topics is one of the first things. That's where you're going to speak off cuffs. So I might be the table topics master for the day. In other words, I have a list of questions I've decided to ask. And sometimes they're simple questions like, Denny, when you were a boy, would you turn off your phone, please? You don't have to answer the second part. And then you speak for, in our club, 1 minute spontaneously off the cuff. And it gets you through a lot of fear. And the reality is that it's fun. It's an absolute blast. Sometimes the questions are very good. One time we had not long ago, one question, what was the biggest, happiest moment in your life? Somebody said, and that same question went to everybody. So the answers were really interesting. We never knew this about these people because they didn't really bring it up until that very moment in time. And then there's a winner at the end, they get a trophy. And I got to tell you about Teresa. Teresa joined our club about 2 months ago. She's from West Africa. She was raised in a wealthy family, but went through a divorce, ended up in a village carrying water on her head because there was no facilities for that in the village she lived in. She wins table topics a few weeks ago, and we give a little trophy out. So what does she do? Puts the trophy on the top of her head and walks back to her seat. She got a lot of applause for that. She's a tremendous guy. She's going to be, you will hear about her somewhere in the future. She's that good from the get-go. We have 4 speeches, 5 to 7 minutes. The speeches are. At 7 minutes, you have 30 seconds to wind up. If you don't finish by 7:30, you're out of the competition because we have an award for the best speaker each week. And the speeches can be on anything you like, except we suggest avoid politics and religion because you're going to lose half the audience as soon as you open your mouth, right? So that goes on. And the thing is that I've been 27 years now. The thing I get ideas for speeches because there's something they said that I totally forgotten. And that leads to more speeches. I've got 378 speeches, I think, all total, because of those little things like that. And it also is the reason I became a writer. I had to do a speech at a Rotary Club in Lake Mary some years ago. And I said, I could do this speech or this one. They're kind of like 2 pages in a book. And that's what got me start writing. And I can't believe it. All these years later, all those books and most of them are about business or big families. I'm one of 10 kids, as Danny mentioned, so there's stories. Then there's 4 evaluations of the speakers. Each one is evaluated, and we have what we call trying to figure what we call it. It's a very gentle evaluation. We'll say, I like this and this about your speech. However, I have some suggestions here, here, and here, and then I close with a couple more things that I liked about your speech. So it's never painful. It's very nice, and it's a good learning experience. And then they get a report on that. We also have a thing in Toastmasters called Pathways. So you can pick the direction you want to go with your speaking career. And it's all online, step by step, with plenty of commitment from everybody to help you to get through those things. And we assign a mentor to all the new members so they can get started right off the bat. And the first speech is called an icebreaker. And that's only 4 to 6 minutes because some people, the first speech gets a little scary. And when they do their icebreaker, there's 3 steps. Step 1 is tell us about your past. Where are you from? This sort of thing, Second is, what are you doing currently? And the third part is, what do you want to do in the future? Where do you see the future? That way we get to know them as a member of our family. Because it's much like Rotary, where this is all a big member family. Would you agree? I can't see any hands, but anybody agree? Oh, okay, thank you. I hate being up here alone without nobody responding. Famous Toastmasters. Did you know that all the astronauts are required to be Toastmasters? Well, they're speaking with the public all the time. But I don't want to lead it at just speaking, because Toastmasters is about communication and speaking. Communications and leadership. Because if you're opening a business, you have business. If it's going to grow, you have to have those 2 skills. Wouldn't you agree, Rich? Yeah, you got to absolutely be able to handle the information you want to your employees so that they're on your dream and go with you. So presentation is part of that, but you must be able to lead them. And luckily for me, I was an OCS candidate many years ago. Fortunately, somebody gave me a shot of penicillin and damn near killed me. And it was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, because I would be on a 2nd lieutenant in Vietnam the next year. You can count the seconds that I would have lived. I did get to Vietnam as a company clerk for 4 months. Guess what I learned there? Everything's an acronym or a system in the military, right? So that prepares you for business. All these things fall into place. When people are in sales, one of the things I talk to them about, I says, you're in sales, you're knocking on doors, you're sending emails, you're sending texts. What would it be like to try and get through that door, to get to talk to the head person? And they said, well, that'd be great. And I said, well, when you do send that text and I agree to meet with you, the first thing they're thinking is, okay, here comes somebody trying to sell me something, right? That's the way it is. But if you're a public speaker with an introduction as Denny Rand, you know your subject, they come to you and the room is full. So I suggest anybody in sales become a Toastmaster because it can really enhance where you're going with your life. Now, the thing we'd like to see is putting Rotary and Toastmasters together, because the combination is once we get them on the path of building their life, well, let's get back. Let's go to Rotary with this. So we can spread this message, which we tried to do back in 2020, but then COVID came around and it all stopped. But I want to see that regained again. Would you agree with that? Boy, you guys are so agreeable. I can almost see you moving out there. But the other thing, what happens to those who become Toastmasters? I just explained the first thing is the first thing that'll happen is, and this always amazes me, I see them get up there and do table topics. Sometimes, like on my role, one of my clients, she got up there and she said 3 words and sat down. She was scared to death. 2 weeks later, because she got through that first fear, she had another one. She just, whoa, this is not the same person. That's how much facing that fear made the difference for her. So being able to do a table topics, then her first speech to introduce herself or to the club, that first table talk made all the difference. So your confidence goes up. You become an excellent speaker because you're talking about your subject, your material. All of you have businesses. That's what Rotary's about. And you get a lot of friends, just like here. I have so many friends because of Toastmasters. I used to have a small business years ago. One of my clients is going to be the speaker next week, Pat Williams. Pat was a client years ago. And when you get into a group like that, just like you do here, you have a lot of friends. But if you're a small business owner, you're in the office, you're working in there, you hardly don't see people. You don't get it. And that's when I joined Rotary. How I got into Rotary. I was supposed to do something like this. I said, look, we don't have a speaker, so I only got 2 minutes. Come on up and talk about their business. Now I've been an entertainer. I thought, piece of cake. I walked up there and it went so bad. I said, I got to do something about this. That's when I found Toastmasters. That many years ago, 27 years ago, 28 years ago in January. So it was very helpful to me. And you can become an author. I did. Let me give you a list of a few of the people who have become famous Toastmasters. Anybody heard of Tim Allen? Tool Time? Okay. Tim did a speech in Rotary, or in Toastmasters in Detroit. And in that speech, it was a humor speech contest. And he was so fed up with the women's movement. And he said, I want my tools. I want my help. It's the same thing he did there. And he won the state. And then somebody said, why don't you do stand-up? So he went and did stand-up for a few years. Then he gets the call. This is Walt Disney Studios. And that's how he got it. All because he started as a Toastmaster. They never found out that he got locked up for 2 years for selling pot because he never would have got the job. But as we know, he's been a tremendously successful author through the years. Let's see who else you might know here. Peter Kors, Rocky Mountain Kool-Aid. Philip Crosby. Does anybody know Philip Crosby? Philip Crosby had the Crosby Wellness Center here, is what his wife put together. I was a client of him for my business. I wanted to have high quality, and I went to that school and learned it very well. I went to that school, paid a lot of money to do it, and doubled my business next year. So these are the kind of speakers we have. And I want to say one of them, oh yeah. They've well impossible. Yeah, Spock. He was a Toastmaster. That's how he got started. Now, questions. All right. Yes, Denny. Yeah, it does, and I think so. Where did the Rotary start originally? It wasn't in Evanston, I know. Where was it? It was started in Evanston. Oh, okay. Because Toastmasters was started in just outside San Francisco, like I said, almost 100 years ago. And you would think, yeah, maybe it came from that result.
San Francisco.
Right. Yeah.
That's where it all moved to.
Oh, well, there we go.
And California was the early growth. Rotary clubs are numbered by when they joined Rotary itself, and all the early clubs are in California.
Yeah.
Rotary One's obviously Chicago, and then 2, 3, 4, and God knows how many are in California.
Now, here's how we recruit. You can do this here. Denny and I have talked about this. when I invite people to Toastmasters, I'll say, then of course somebody goes, no, I can't speak, right? The biggest beer in the world, right? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, here's what you can do. If you come to the club, we're going to give you a free breakfast. You're going to hear 4 acts, 4 speeches. You sit there and watch, and you don't have to do anything but say, when Toastmaster asks you, how'd you hear about us? They'll say, Tim told me, or whatever, meet up, something like that. That's all you have to do. Now, the thing is, they do come. That's the first 3 meetings. On the 3rd meeting, we're going to ask them if they want to join. And then if they say yes, Sergeant Martin takes them out. We ask, are there any, nay or yea in the club? And we always vote them in. We never had one that wasn't. We voted a few out through the years, but never turned them away. And they come back in the room. We all applaud. We all shake their hands. Does that sound familiar? Right? That's exactly what you do here. So when they get 3 meetings, here's what happens. When they sit that first one, they're thinking, oh boy, they're going to call on me, and we're not going to call on them. And then 2nd meeting, by the time they get to that 3rd meeting, they say, wait a minute, maybe I could do this. And they join. They call me the recruiter because I've recruited, 180, I think, in 27 years, because I know what it's going to do for them. And my joy is to see them succeed up at that lectern and take away that little trophy we have in our club. You can visit us anytime. We meet every Friday morning at the community center in Winter Park. But any questions? Somebody else must have another question. There we go.
Yeah, I do. Calvin Gardner. You missed one of the great Toastmasters from Central Florida. It's Arnold Howell.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was a member of our club, and it was like listening to Rat Skelton up there. He was a great storyteller, and he gave that all back to Toastmasters. Is how he did that well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for the information. I was curious, what is the most local club, and how often do they meet? Like, how would we actually interact with Toastmasters? Can you give us some information about the local
like
aspect?
I said, the first 3 meetings, you just come in and sit and watch.
Where though?
At the club, my club, or there are 30 Toastmaster clubs in Central Florida.
Right.
30 of them.
What's the closest one to this location?
I don't know. If you go to Toastmasters.org, put in the zip code, which 801 here, I think. Put in the zip code of where you live, and it'll show you the clubs, the times they meet, their site, and everything. So it's Toastmasters.org. It's a nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
I believe the closest one is at the Citrus Club, Friday mornings at 7:30 in the morning.
That's correct. Yeah, you have a member here who started that club. I've forgotten her name. Tall blonde, right?
Oh, I didn't
No. No, she has it. Yeah, Theodora. Yeah, she was on our club. She joined our club. I was her first mentor in her club, and I looked at that speech she's going to do about the airlines, all the things she's done. And, oh my God, this woman has changed the world.
She's the one that brought me to Rotary.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, she's good. But she put the club together at Citrus Club, the Toastmaster Club there.
So Toastmasters, I wanted to tell you guys, I have to give testament. I did my first public speaking engagement after 4 years of being at home with kids. And I was never nervous before that. And I get up there and I knew my stuff, and all of a sudden I'm sweating profusely, and it felt like the Sahara Desert was in my mouth, like no matter what I did. I was so visibly uncomfortable that somebody went up to the thermostat to sort of correct the temperature. And then someone told me about Toastmasters. And Toastmasters changed the game. My mentor said, you can't be nervous when you're in service. And that is what I learned to focus on whenever I'm in the room, is who I'm serving instead of who I could possibly be letting down. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. Good testimony. Appreciate that. I worked for Tony Robbins as a speaker and a trainer of speakers mostly, because when Tony asked me to join him, it wasn't through Tony, she was a sales manager. They had training for 17 days straight in Lauderdale from 9 o'clock in the morning to 1:30. This is Tony, total immersion. And I agree with that. But when we got there were 14 of us. I was the only one who'd been a speaker. So immediately I'm trying to see them do a little presentation for a couple of minutes. They couldn't do it. Hey, Ricke, you have a new job. So I started training them there. And the event happened. And my first presentation for Tony was at a leads group on Lake Faith in Maitland. 50 people in the room. Second Tuesday of September. Before I finished, everybody's cell phone went off. Oh, was Sunburst? What's going on here? It was 9/11. And then everything stopped. And then on October 1st, they started to call me back and then the other members, okay, we need some pumping up here, you know. And we did, we put 5,000 people in that convention center that year, which would be 2001, yeah. And they all walked the coals and nobody got burned. 5,000 people walking on hot coals. I did it twice. You want to see the burn marks? No, just kidding, just kidding. Any other questions?
One of the things I think is really cool about the connection between Rotary and Toastmasters
Yeah.
is if you go to our training website, which you get inundated with from the president-elect training system, Toastmasters has produced most of the videos that are being offered to Rotarians to help make them better public speakers and those kind of things. So there's a deep history between the two organizations.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can speak any more of that.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. It's a good point. So you want to, we'll select a committee or somebody to work with me and on how we can put this thing together locally and then build that model and then start to scale it, you know. Any other questions? Yeah, she does have a question. All right.
I did. Yeah, does Toastmasters also help you get public speaking
No.
engagement gigs? No,
But
so there's
the
no,
marketing is up to you. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if they helped you practice
That
in the
would've
real
been ni-
world.
That would have been nice. I sure could have used that for a few years. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. You have a little parting gift to say thank you.
Well, let me just say one more thing. You heard what I used to do as a musician. Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.